O. Henry lived and worked in the last decade of the 19th century, in the first decade of the 20th. He's one of those writers whom I started reading when I was in my teenage, and he wrote so many love stories. And love stories nowadays make me grimace and roll my eyes. There are some of them that are so heartbreaking that I cannot read them again. They are the best, of course, but I cannot read them again. And there are some which are so maudlin, which are so silly, which are so juvenile that from Eric Segal's love story to The Fault in Our Stars, that again I roll my eyes, but for a very different reason. But O. Henry's stories, which I read 40, 50 years ago, still tug at my heartstrings. Here is one of them. It's a love story with a twist at the end, and if you don't get that twist, you will not be able to appreciate the wonder, the charm, the beauty and pathos of the story. So it starts like this. O. Henry's prose is rather florid and prolix, so it's not quite what the modern young reader is trained to handle. So I'll make a summary of the first part. This was New York, and this was winter, and this was very cold, and Mrs. Parker's boarding house was full, except the one or two of the poorest rooms, including the cheapest of all, the coldest, meanest, cheapest of all, the Skylight Room. That's the name of the story, the Skylight Room. And one day, this young girl, she went to seek a room, and Mrs. Parker showed her one room after another, until when the girl said that she had no money more than the $3 in her pocket, she wrinkled her nose and looked down with great disdain and contempt, and asked the black maid to show the girl to her room, the newly rented room. This girl, she lived alone, and she had very few acquaintances in New York, although she was young and cute and pretty and vivacious. And all the male boarders in the house fell all over her, from the fat, florid, middle-aged man to the young, romantic beau who sighed over her every time he saw her. But Miss Leeson avoided them all as much as she could. And every day she went out looking for work, with only her typewriter as a tool in trade, hoping that she would get some work of writing, stenography, and things of that sort. But the job offerings were few and far between, and very ill paid. And so that one day, she told her fellow boarders that she liked her room, although it was so cold and so sparsely furnished, and it felt as if she was living down a well, but at least there was an opening in the skylight through which she could watch a particular star which had become a permanent favorite, and she had named it Billy Jackson. And nobody, of course, understood why she had chosen that special name. When the men fell all over her and she had trouble warding off their advances, the other middle-aged ladies who were boarders, they sniffed with haughty disgust at her, as if she was flirting with these men. One evening, she came back, Miss Leeson came back, very tired and sad, and nobody knew how desperately hungry she was, on the border of starvation. And then she went up to bed. And this is where I'll start reading the text as O. Henry wrote it. There came an evening when she wearily climbed Mrs. Parker's stoop at the hour when she always returned from her dinner at the restaurant. But she had had no dinner. As she stepped into the hall, Mr. Hoover met her and seized his chance. He asked her to marry him, and his fat face hovered above her like an avalanche. She dodged and caught the balustrade. He tried for her hand, and she raised and smote him weakly in the face. Step by step she went on, dragging herself by the railing. She passed Mr. Skeeter's door as he was red-linking a stage direction for Myrtle Doremi, that is Miss Leeson, in his unaccepted comedy, to pirouette around stage from left to side of the Count. Up a carpeted ladder she crawled at last and opened the door to the skylight room. She was too weak to light the lamp or even to undress. She lay upon the iron cot, but her fragile body scarcely hollowing the worn springs, and that in that dark Erebus of a room she slowly raised her heavy eyelids and smiled. For Billy Jackson, her favorite star, was shining down on her, calm and bright and constant through the skylight. There was no world about her. She was sunk in a pit of blackness, with but the small square of pallid light framing the star that she had so whimsically and oh so ineffectually named. Miss Longnecker might be right. It was Gamma of the constellation Cassiopeia and not Billy Jackson, and yet she could not let it be Gamma. As she lay on her back, she tried twice to raise her arm. The third time she got two thin fingers to her lips and blew a kiss out of the black pit to Billy Jackson. Then her arm fell back limply. "Goodbye, Billy," she murmured faintly. "You're millions of miles away and you won't even twinkle once. But you kept where I could see you most of the time, up there when there wasn't anything else but darkness to look at, didn't you? Millions of miles. Goodbye, Billy Jackson." Clara, the colored maid, found the door locked in the morning, and they forced it open. Vinegar and the slapping of wrists and burnt feathers to her nose proving of no avail, someone ran to phone for an ambulance. In due time, it backed up to the door with much gear changing, and the capable young medico, in his white linen coat, ready, active, confident, with his smooth face half debonair, half grim, danced up the steps. "Ambulance call 249?" he said briefly. "What's the trouble?" "Oh, yes, doctor," sniffed Mrs. Parker, as though the trouble was that there should be trouble in the house. "I can't think what can be the matter with her. Nothing we could do would bring her to. It's a young woman, a Miss Elsie, yes, a Miss Elsie Leeson. Never before in my house." "What room?" cried the doctor in a terrible voice, to which Mrs. Parker was a stranger. The skylight room, it..." Evidently, the ambulance doctor was familiar with the location of skylight rooms. He was gone up the stairs, 4 at a time. Mrs. Parker followed slowly, as her dignity demanded. On the first landing, she met him coming back bearing the astronomer in his arms. He stopped and let loose the practiced scalpel of his tongue, not loudly. Gradually, Mrs. Parker crumpled as a stiff garment that slips down from a nail. Ever afterwards, there remained crumples in her mind and body. Sometimes her curious rumors would ask her what the doctor had said to her exactly. "Let that be," she would answer. "If I can get forgiveness for having heard it, I'll be satisfied." The ambulance physician strode with his burden through the pack of journalist hounds that follow the curiosity chase, and even they fell back along the sidewalk abashed, for his face was that of one who bears his own dead. They noticed that he did not lay down upon the bed prepared for it in the ambulance, the form that he carried, and all that he said was, "Drive like hell, Watson," to the driver. That is all. Is it a story? In the next morning's paper, I saw a little news item, and the last sentence of it may help you, as it helped me, to weld the incident together. It recounted the reception into Bellevue Hospital of a young woman who had been removed from number 49 East Street, suffering from debility induced by extreme starvation. It concluded with these words: "Dr. William Jackson, the ambulance physician who attended the case, says the patient will recover." Please tell me, let me know that you understood what happened at the end and how it reveals everything. And so, what a beautiful, heartbreaking, touching love story it is. With O. Henry, I wish I could go on reading out, narrating more and more of his gems. Some of you know the best ones: The Gift of the Magi, The Last Leaf, stories like that. But I hope that this one might be a little less known, and some of you will relish it the way I understand the word relish, and give me the feedback that it deserves.